Hi, everybody. This is Emily. I'm here to go over with you an example by reading through with you the first few pages from the first chapter from my sweet romance novel, A Sleepy Hollow Kiss. This is a PDF proof exported that I can send to book reviewers that I thought I would go over with you. So let's go down and take a look. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, of course, how I crafted this scene, the introduction scene. Let me get through all the beginning. And of course, it's black and white here in the PDF proof. But if you're wondering, this is what the cover looks like. This is my large print version. It's cut off a little bit at the top, but I do have this book in regular print and large print. Okay, so let's get down and look further at Sleepy Hollow Kiss. This is a Halloween-themed sweet romance novel that takes place in Snowdrop Valley, which is a sleepy little New England, Vermont book town. This is the second book in my Snowdrop Valley series. I wrote under the pen name Vivian Mayfair. For this particular series, preface, I have a little reader letter. Let's get on down to chapter 1. Sorry, scrolling down. Okay. And so I did go over with you I have these cute little quips at the beginning of all of my chapters that come directly from me. I talked in two previous videos I did today about 6 great ways to start out your books, or how to first introduce your character in your books. And I'm kind of showing you an example of how I blended setting, characterization, plot, and intrigue all in the same chapter. So let's take a look and do a little read through together. You can read along. Life happened in hallways. It didn't matter the hallway, the building, the business, the town, the country, the continent. They were all alike. Empty, stark, cold at times, or blazing hot at others, with some leading out and others leading in. Hallways could be quite efficient. They offered everything from bathrooms and water fountains to vending machines and garbage cans. Some had lumpy sofas as resting spots for emergency naps, or chairs for hanging your head between your knees. Still, nothing much happened in hallways, at least not to her. Lane Sharp learned early on that hallways meant entertainment. So here we have an introduction to our character through narrative with something that seems a little off, but interesting. It piques your interest. Why are we talking about hallways? Why does she have this history with hallways? What kind of things have happened to her in hallways? Let's just read on to continue. The longer corridors spoke of confessions that could sag a mother to her knees. The shorter ones were like bustling beauty parlors, where shufflers frantically tidied up their appearance and lipstick with hairbrushes after realizing they looked like scrambled eggs on toast. Always amusing. Oftentimes, hallways served as a counselor's office where friends consoled one another after a failed exam. Sometimes they served as venting venues for whiners having temper tantrums to smash phones or shred breakup letters. Yes, hallways were all alike. Sitting in one now, she tapped her pen on the yellow notepad on her lap, pondered over all the hallways that had influenced her life the past 16 years. Middle school, high school, college, doctors' offices. This one drew the eye. Snowdrop Valley's Literary Arts College was decked in ghoulish festivity. Posters from movie versions of Frankenstein, Wuthering Heights, and Rebecca lined one wall. On the other, a giant spider balloon dangled and bopped around with black streamers for legs that trailed over the floor. Some prankster had wrapped the water cooler in black tape and glued white filled eyes to the front with licorice jellies for pupils. Yep, life happened in hallways, hers especially. Amazing what one could learn about people from them. Fashion trends were the big thing. Everything from jogging suits, stilettos, and miniskirts, or ultra tight skinny jeans to saggy pants showing hind ends. Once she heard a confession about a crime that involved stealing black lace undies from Victoria's Secret by a man. It was a Friday at the school, and students flocked into New York City to schmooze fun. So this second page, we now are learning a little bit about Lane Sharp, right? She's sitting in a hallway waiting on something. We don't know why, so there's a little bit of intrigue. We give some visual description that ties into the theme of the book. It's a Halloween Gothic type theme to the book. We're in a literary arts college during the time of Halloween, so we have the appropriate setting. We have her pondering different life type events that happen in hallways and her thinking strangely about odd abstract things like life in hallways, almost as if she's trying not to think about what she's waiting for. So let's look a little further. What was the downside of living in the world's smallest New England book town, only a few years old? The most exciting thing that happened in Snowdrop Valley was usually the town council approving a project to build a new statue in honor of a famous author who somehow influenced literary history. Fun times. Even book towns grew sleepy after a while. Yes, they had everything from themed bookstores by the dozens to literary influenced gift shops, bed and breakfasts, and restaurants. In the past year, more book businesses popped up, such as the London Printing School, the Arabian Nights Marketplace, Bookends Magazine, Sapphire Books Printing Press, and an exclusive VIP Biblio Hub for members. Books, books, books. Fridays meant few people at Snowdrop Valley Literary Arts College. Worse, it meant Lane was alone on the top floor, lined with faculty offices. The place was deserted with no people in sight to keep her panic attacks at bay. She listened, hearing the spooky swoosh of air rushing through the vents, knew the janitor was around at least, considering the floor sparkled like or with damp lemon wax. Her mind drifted to Something Wicked This Way Comes, the current book on her lap written by Ray Bradbury. It was her favorite dark fantasy that bordered horror about the nightmarish experience of a traveling carnival. Not gothic enough, not sparking ideas. Holding the pen was impossible with her fidgeting hand. How hard could it be to design a class centered on the grotesque in Gothic literature? Instead, she closed her eyes and tried her newest thing, counting apples. So we're getting more of a picture, right? So if you haven't read the first book in this series, which is My Christmas Darling, this is the second book. Even though Halloween comes before Christmas, this Halloween book was the second book. We are learning that she's in a charming little book town where every business, everything centered around the production of literature. She's sitting in a hallway at the school, in an office, working on a project, feeling nervous. First, her mind was wandering around about weird things like hallways and pondering life. Now she switches her thoughts over to something like apples. What's going on with her? We have a hint at panic attacks. So we know she's got some baggage. We know there's something going on here. And we have a really charming setting. We're learning a little bit about her by what she's doing in the setting. So this is a good introduction to the world we're entering and her role in it. Let's keep reading. It was that time of year. Tart Granny Smith apples and mushy speckled gala apples with juicy Honeycrisp apples that exploded with sugary sweetness. Tomorrow she'd be home all day with Benny. What could she make? Crumb pie? Corny. Cobbler? Boring. Muffins? Too dry. Aha! Apple chocolate chip pound cake with fruit chunks, the kind so heavenly and moist that Belgian dark chocolate oozed with each freshly cut slice still hot from the pan. Her mom would have loved that. Yep, over the years, Lane thought about her mom in hallways. Even imagined advice she'd received if her mom had lived. Hallways. When Lane was 10, she went back to sleeping in her parents' bedroom. That lasted as long as a sneeze, so a deal was struck. A tiny mattress was put in the hallway where they left their door cracked. 5 years she slept like the dead, sandwiched between two walls. Until Benny. Lane, the administrator's door opened with a creak at her left. The older woman, 60 at best, and with midnight-dyed hair swept into a bun, stepped out. You came early. Lane pulled to her feet, roaring and ready to go. You have 20 more minutes. You emailed me for a meeting. Madge slanted her eyes, which bunched up wrinkles on her cheeks. Honey, if you're so early that you have to sit for 20 minutes, then I'm not giving you enough work. I'm designing the syllabus for the grotesque elements class. On a notepad? Lane tucked sleek champagne hair behind her ear. I think best on the move. So this basically proceeds into several chapters where she's called into her boss, Madge's office. And we learn more through their dialogue that Lane is the director of Gothic literature at the Snowdrop Valley Literary Arts College. And the book starts with this conversation in there about how her boss is bringing in a specialist, an expert in horror literature, to work with Lane one-on-one to discuss possibilities to incorporate horror literature curriculum into the literary arts Gothic literature plan. Well, Lane has a pet peeve that Gothic literature and horror literature are two entirely different things, and in fact, it makes her furious when people say horror and Gothic literature are the same thing. So, of course, the man they're bringing in is a horror literature expert, ironically from the South, which is pretty funny. And on top of that, they're going to host a Gothic Literature Week for visiting students who want to come and have an experience at the school and experience their program. So this man is going to come in and not only work with Lane on coming up with a concept to integrate new curriculum into the Gothic literature program, but also to come up with a week long of events revolving around literature, horror, and Gothic literature in this town to keep them entertained. So that's what happens throughout the book and all these kind of funny different things that go on in the book. So I want to scroll down. I'll skip some of the dialogue, but you can kind of see how we started the book with some introduction to setting, some unusual quirky thought patterns with Lane, a little bit about how she looks and what she does in her place of environment, indicating she has had some trauma or some issues. I'm going to scroll down to page 12 and continue reading a little more as she leaves the school and gets out onto the street, just to kind of see how I use setting a little bit more to build this story. So she got the info. Now she has to go out. Alone. That word, alone. She stepped onto the sidewalk a block off of Main Street. Cool air hit her nostrils and brought the faint scent of burning oak firewood. It was getting dark earlier nowadays. The fog was rolling in, followed by blackness not far behind. Long shadows struck the pavement and seemed to vanish as she reached them. Ugh, apple cider, apple tarts, applesauce. Tomorrow they would visit Gristmill Farms, where the first crops of 17 apple varieties would be out for sale, sitting dewy and ripe. Her mouth watered thinking of the famous sugared cider donuts. Evening, Miss Sharp. She waved across the street at Henry Weston, owner of the Twain House B&B. Like clockwork, it took Lane months to develop a walking route that would show people. Not as easy when the clouds drizzled or the snow drifted in. Still, she knew the hours of every business on Main Street, the routines of the proprietors, with which businesses were busy at what times. So long as she could see people, she wasn't alone. If she keeled over from a breathing attack on the sidewalks, somebody would see her soon enough. 16 years she'd dealt with her anxiety. Since that night, alone. In the distance, she heard the rumble of a tractor. They were setting up the town maze that took up 3 blocks and cut off traffic to those streets. She knew when the wind blew, the scent of hay bales her way. Benny would like that. She wouldn't be alone in a cute hay bale maze. She knocked on the front window of the Bronte sisters' tea house. The youngest sister stuck out a hand from under a Victorian bell sleeve and waved, then went back to counting profits at the counter. Clockwork. Grounded again. 4 more minutes to home. Lane picked up her pace and took a sharp left on Green Gables Road. Crossed the street, eyeballing the corner house. The old man smoked his pipe and watched her scoot past. Never a word. No matter. She knew he played classical music and read World War II books, since he owned the only shop in town that sold history books that were drier than the pancakes she burned that morning. Surely he'd call for help if she stopped breathing on her route home. Not likely that would happen, so long as she wasn't that thing, alone. The worst thing in the world that could be done to a person, alone. Nobody to help you, nobody to reassure you, nobody to keep you safe. It wouldn't do. Her spirits soared, approaching their picturesque home provided by the college, a cute house with a white fence and a cobblestone path leading up to the stone steps. The only house on the street painted in sweet baby pink with a turquoise door hidden by a thickly brambled dead garden. Okay, so it doesn't matter what happens the rest here, but I wanted to show you in this chapter what we've accomplished so far, right? We have introduced the character. We've shown she has some kind of a psychosis. She has a severe anxiety or fear about being alone. She's developed patterns for herself, how to exist in her world in a controlled way that makes her feel safe. She's about to be challenged because what you didn't see in the office, her boss is dropping something in her lap that she doesn't even want to have to do or deal with. We get an idea of the town, the people in it, the environment, the style and tone of the writing. So this is a fantastic way for you to start your book in an environment that the character works or lives in, and sneaking in through interaction with someone else, little quips or quirks about the character, and blending in the environment to set the tone. I will make another video for you guys with some introduction pages to my other books as well. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below.